Welcome to Power Up, the podcast that uncovers the unique challenges women leaders face today. Join your hosts, Nat and Kristen, as we dive into the tough topics and provide actionable insights you can apply right now. Don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss any episodes.
Happy Mother's Day, Kristen, to the CEO of our family, Chief Entertainment Officer. Your jokes may be cheesy, but they're the best in the business.
Did you chat GPT that?
No, I just Googled it. We're doing today's Minisode, or maybe Maxisode, depending on how it goes, for Mother's Day, on a question that we got from one of our wonderful listeners, which is around the idea of career and child juggle.
How do I balance my career aspirations with my desire to spend time with my child, especially since I've chosen a part-time role? I'm not fully utilizing my skills. I worry that this choice may hinder my career progression. I'm comparing myself to other friends. It's a delicate balance. I'm wondering if I'm making the right decision for my career and my family.
And we just want to do a quick disclaimer up top to make it very clear. I mean, there's a lot of research done on this, but actually, funnily enough, women who are in straight relationships tend to be the least happy of us all. I don't think they have done any research on women in same-sex relationships, but single women are even happier. So when we're talking about this topic today, we are talking about Mother's Day. We know that comes with a lot of different emotions for a lot of different people, and if you are in a situation where listening to yet another Mother's Day podcast or something is not serving you, feel free to switch off. We will not be offended. Still leave that 5-star review. And also we recognize that not all families have a mother and a father, and that they come in all these beautiful different shapes and sizes and different ways. So we are talking in general today about probably largely about women in relationship with men, and really having to navigate some of those, the juggle and the things that come from those cross-gender?
Well, it's gendered social roles and norms, but also biological.
Yeah. So I feel like so disclaimer at the top, and we won't go into it anymore, but we love you all, and if you are having a tough week leading up to Mother's Day at this part of the world, our thoughts are with you, because that's pretty rough. We know that it's not always a great day. Yeah. But we thought, given that we can't solve this problem of the juggle, we can't unjuggle, we just thought we'd share some thoughts that we both have about some things that we've sort of encountered in life or experienced or have tried or learned. Yeah.
So again, the theme, how do I have a fulfilling career and raise my kids in the way I want to? The first thought I have is that your feelings are just that, they're feelings, and they're really big. So what you're feeling right now is not necessarily what you're going to feel in 2 years and 4 years and 5 years. So you are in a season where your feelings are big and they're valid. For example, you might be really struggling with this new identity as a mum, particularly if all you're doing is feeding children all day long or shuttling them here and there, particularly when they're young and you're basically keeping them alive, but then you're also at home and you possibly have a partner that's out at work. Therefore, you're the one now making dinner. And I remember really struggling with that, needing to have dinner on the table for my spouse when he came home, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just a 1950s housewife. And I struggled with this identity.
Did you wear a pom-pom skirt?
I don't know, but I do remember all these old YouTube videos where they're like, look great for your husband when he comes home, and it's the best gift. Probably not.
But some of that's expectations. I mean, there's decades of expectations, but it's also expectations we can put on ourselves. But even just looking at these terrible Mother's Day messages, and two immediately stand out on top of the beautiful one I gave you. Wishing the original multitasker a happy Mother's Day. You managed to raise me and keep the house standing. Now that's a superpower. And if you want one from a son, happy Mother's Day. Your ability to turn mundane tasks into comedy gold is a talent Dad still can't match. We are so socialized to feel like we have to do everything and take on that role. Yeah. So I think my point to follow up on that is that you are not alone. And we've just recently announced in our Powrsuit membership, which is global, by the way, wherever you're listening from, please join us. It's an amazing community and it's growing all the time. But our most recent trial is, we're calling it Power Match, because we like to brand everything. And this is effectively to help people find career enhancing connections in an authentic way. So we've just asked a 1-question survey, which is tell us the types of people you want to connect with. What challenges are you going through? Are you returning to work after a break? Are you navigating your first people leadership role? Are you in a male dominated industry? There's a whole range of different things that people might want to be connected on. And our single top by a decent amount is how did other people navigating the work and motherhood juggle.
Yeah.
This is a real top of mind thing for professional women.
Yeah, it is. Which leads us nicely into my second point, which is share and outsource what you can. Ask for help, voice that you need help. And that could be to your partner and having robust discussions about share of responsibilities and what that looks like and energy levels. And it could be looking to wider extended family. It could be looking to your community. It could be looking to friends. I know that my mom did a lot of babysitting swapping with girlfriends.
Clubs, aren't they?
Yeah, because she never had family in town where she lived, and I never had family in the country where I chose to live. So looking to wider communities and friends groups and outsourcing. Look, when I first went back to work, I did pay to outsource. That was a choice, a financial choice I chose to make and save less in order to survive and recognize that some of these things I just didn't want to spend my time doing, which was sometimes picking my kids up from school so that I could work a full day and not be introduced as the part-time mom, which is other women were. So I was like, I have to...
If you were one of those other women, please stop.
Yeah, terrible, eh? Anyway, so I just made some financial decisions to spend so I could work longer and kind of outsource some of what I would still consider the yucky stuff, like when the kids are really grumpy after school or starting dinner or whatever. I just chose to spend some money at cleaning the house, for example. I chose to spend money on that stuff. So share and outsource.
I think that's really valid. And I think to that point, we've talked before about that kind of club that still seems to arise between the stay-at-home parents and the working parents. Let's leave those clubs to themselves, or let's merge those clubs, because women need to support each other, and there is no one right way. Yeah. But then another thing that I think women shouldn't have is imposter syndrome, and I'm a total imposter right now because I don't have children and I'm dishing out advice as per my favorite
best
topic.
Advice comes from non-parents.
It does. That's why I'm writing my book on it. But I think with what you just said, I think it's something I've heard a lot of women talk about is, if I up my hours at work, there's no point because it goes straight back out into childcare costs and whatever else. There is logic to that, but there's also not logic to that, because if it makes you feel more fulfilled and happy to up your hours a bit, you are entitled to up your hours. It doesn't mean you have to maximize your money at this time. That may be a really easy way to ease your stress, make you more fulfilled, have more quality time with your kids. Vice versa, if you want to take that part-time, absolutely fine. So my little add-on to that outsource or share, and this is coming again from a non-parent, but I think it's relevant for everyone, is conversations. Have hard conversations and set boundaries. And this is something my girlfriend and I have done from day one, is having conversations about money, about how we share the work, about all of the household load, all of that sort of stuff. And I think when you said you had that expectation that you had to serve your partner dinner, like sometimes those are unsaid expectations we place on ourselves. And I also know a bunch of single mums who are still taking on, again, unsaid, the mental load for their ex-husbands, where they're doing things like making sure they organise the school fees, making sure they organise whatever the kids need for camp. They are doing things like when you're swapping things between houses, they're not only dropping them off, they're picking them up. And I think it is really important. It is hard, but to have those conversations with your partner about how you are both being partners and how you can put things into place to make sure you're sharing the load, because this deep social programming does mean we tend to take on more, and then we get expected to take on more. All of that stuff kicks in. So if you have gone down that path of doing one of the hardest things I can imagine doing, having children, surely having a hard conversation is not much harder than that.
Yeah, absolutely. My next tip is that the juggle is real. This goes again with your feelings are valid, and that this is a season where the juggle is real, and you're never going to feel like you've got it quite right, and that's okay. But this season is unique, and I like this saying actually that our community manager Alina said, is that this too shall pass. Like as kids get older, you do find space to recenter your focus on your career. And I found that one of my greatest tips as part of this is involve your kids in your career. My kids always ask now how Powrsuit's going, and they always asked how my last ventures were going, and they love being involved, and they are just as invested in me, and I get to teach them all about anything from career to business sense to challenges that we have. Each season is different and brings a little bit more space to refocus, and women are incredible. Thinking this morning, we had this discussion if I sacrificed my career, and I actually didn't, because women are incredible at supercharging their careers when they figure out how to use those boundaries, those skills, all the stuff we've learned while being off with our children, and coming back in and supercharging it. Like, we're there for it.
I so agree. I mean, we talk a lot about the 40-hour work week. It's not about bums on seats time. It's about value add.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's my follow-up to your point, is defining your goal. And it's really important to do that, because sometimes if we end up in this sort of cycle of self-doubt and self-flagellation effectively, where you kind of make a choice but you don't do it deliberately, and then you sort of end up comparing yourself with other people and wondering if you've done it wrong, or feeling, and you just keep that burden of stress all the time. Whereas I think if you say, I'm allowed to set a goal for now, and it may be my 6-month goal, and that 6-month goal might be sanity, and it might be, I want the lowest stress, chillest job I can possibly get to make sure that I have the time to do what I want for my kids this next 6 months or year. Great. You may change your mind in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, 5 years, whatever. You're allowed to, but just make the call and stop comparing yourself with other people, because there is virtually no chance you are having an accurate comparison, because what is it? You can't compare your insides with someone else's outsides. You have no idea what's going on in their life. And it is the easiest way to make yourself feel unhappy, as is not just making a decision and sticking to it. And it really doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I just went and visited my dad last month, and I like to go into the future with him and project, what we're up to with Powrsuit and where I'm living and what the future looks like. And then it's all of these decisions that need to be made. And he just stopped me and he said, but you're happy, right? And I stopped and I thought, oh yeah, I am. Yeah. Like, why I felt the need to project my goal, my future goals, and what success looked like is so crazy when I go, oh, the choice I made today for us to do this thing and for me to be able to see my kids off as they go off into the great big world, I am happy. No doubt there will be some tough days, but are you happy? I think it's just such a simple but critical thing to go, hey, wait, I am. So why am I comparing myself against that person?
Yeah, because if you are unhappy, you can change.
Yes.
You can move things around. But I think the fear people has is my decision now setting me up for failure later? And I think it's worth considering, but it is very much if you're happy now, there is some real benefit to that. Not a lot of people are happy.
Yep.
I also would say challenge your assumptions. And I've coached a lot of women leaders and a lot of women who actually have called me to get me to challenge their assumptions because they're like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to take on this job because I'm thinking about having children or I'm coming back from a career break. And I know what they want from me, which is to say, do it anyway. Because often we have this understanding of what a bigger job looks like. It's more time, it's more stress, it's more tricky, hard, problematic things. But is it? Like, I think if you actually sit down and think about what a new job might entail, you can actually also plan for what you might need to put in place. So I think your example before is amazing. If you go for a bigger job and you get a pay rise, you actually have more money to pay to outsource cleaning, outsource some of the jobs you don't want to do, and have bought that freedom. So maybe you can actually free up some of that time to devote to your job. If it's that, you might consider job sharing. You might consider, I know people already are talking about 4-day weeks as in leadership positions. So all of the stuff might be a lot more negotiable than you think. So I always encourage people to sit and think about the job they want and break down all the barriers that they think are holding them back and really tackle each one by one and challenge their own assumptions about what that job would look like. Because you may actually find taking less time at work and an easier, in quotation mark, job is actually adding so much stress to your life
Yeah.
that you might be better off to just take the step up.
And I know that it's much easier to negotiate with an existing company than to go and kind of find a whole new job. So with that, challenging your assumptions, do it with your employer, do it with a manager, and not only ask for professional development budget while you're on leave so that you can learn and they can continue to invest in you so you can take that step up, but make sure that you're kind of navigating all of your options with your existing employer before you leave and really seeing if there's an option there. I think you're in the strongest position in an environment that knows your value and your superpowers and using your strengths. Yeah. And then
vice versa, just go wild and apply for another job. You know, like I think some of this is mindset. And if you're not presenting as someone who is nervous about taking on a bigger job, which is none of their business anyway, go in, and everything's negotiable after you get the job. So you can always turn it down.
And on that, you know, work. if you had an idea to launch your own gig, this would be the time to do it. Like thinking of, I know you're exhausted with a new baby, I get that, but
no comment, because it sounds excruciatingly painful to have a baby, so I'm like, do you want to add any more?
No thanks. But actually it isn't a bad time to reflect on your goals, and if you've got an entrepreneurial bug that's sitting there waiting to do something in the world, it's not a terrible time to do it. So reach out to us. We're happy to have a chat with you about that. Yeah. I think it would be worth just moving into a couple of things. One, recognizing that there is indeed a financial penalty for the most part when it comes to mothers. They pay up to 60% salary penalty over the first 5 years of establishing their family. I know that I took a big hit with my financial well-being, I suppose, in making the choices that I made, because I didn't want to regret not hanging out with my kids. And then I moved country, and then, oh my goodness, no one here in New Zealand knew who I was, and I had to take a huge step. It was like horrible. So like, learn from me. Don't do that. But
Says Kristen, who says start a new company.
Why not? But yeah, look, I think there is such a thing as a motherhood penalty. And so what in terms of financial well-being? So what I'd like to challenge all those organizations that are listening, and men that are listening, because I know we have male allies that do listen, is that, you know, research shows through and through that dads that spend more time with their kids have really well-balanced, healthy children who take risks, children who have emotional regulation, children who are ultimately more successful in their lives when they have strong relationships and have spent time with their dads, number one. Number two, organizations should be destigmatizing men taking parental leave, paternity leave, whatever we call it. And in New Zealand, I think we had 2.2% of the population of men taking it, over 98% of women. In Canada, that's upwards around 20%. So we've got a lot of work to do to get to a 50-50 split with parental leave of both partners taking time out.
Yeah, I actually really like that point, and it's something I was thinking about when you were talking earlier. And this is something I reflected on a lot, because there's that great quote that I live by now. Our generation was one of the first to be told we girls could do anything, while our parents generally modelled the exact opposite behaviour. And I think all of this is to say, what would you wish for your daughter?
Yeah.
You know, because if you're not modelling that, if you are modelling
your son,
things that...
You should be taking the time.
Yeah, actually, or your son as well. Like, do you want your son to grow up in a marriage where the woman is making all the sacrifices? Because if that's what you're modelling, that is what they will do.
Yeah.
And so it is really actually one of the best gifts, and I think there's research around this too, that mums who bring their children into their work, who help their children see them as more than just a mum, or just the thing that they go to rely on, as a separate individual person who is doing other stuff, actually have really, really good outcomes for their children, because their children grow up thinking that too. So I just thought that was really interesting. And then I think the other thing men can do, and this falls under that bracket of having hard conversations, is when women take time off work, their retirement savings suffer. And that is part of the wealth gap. And in New Zealand, I know there was one KiwiSaver, which is our superannuation program provider, who really advocated for this. And I think they've changed the law that now, if you are one side of a partnership taking time off, doesn't matter if you're gender, the other person can opt to put half their retirement savings in your account over that time, so the amount they would otherwise contribute. And that to me is a critical thing and a critical part of this decision, because if you are a partnership, all of this is a partnership.
Yeah.
You are not, just because you're the one staying at work, that money is not yours. That money is a shared asset that you've agreed on. So I think men normalizing that as well, and employers normalizing that sort of stuff, and equipping women to understand those financial implications is really, really going to make a massive difference to their financial well-being.
Kyle and I have just celebrated 19 years, and I basically told him everything that is his is mine.
I mean, legally, yes, that is true. I mean, do you even have his, I mean, you probably have stuff that you wouldn't give him. He wouldn't take your clothes, but do you have any other separate belongings?
I wonder, we're not sure about the dog and how we'd work that.
Oh, the dog's going with you.
I think so. He says that too, and I'm like, whatever. He's such
But he
a
would
suck.
get visitation rights, supervised visitation rights.
That's right. But look, we went out to our community earlier today, and we said, do you have any advice for this fabulous Powrsuit listener? Because this is the power of community, and again, it's connecting with those that are in similar situations. So we're just going to share a few insights. The first one is someone said, I always found taking a different direction as a slight step rather than stepping back helped my mental narrative, because careers aren't linear. And that I love that. I just love that.
Yeah, so it's like
direction.
such an easy, we talk about the importance of language.
Yeah.
Rather than a step back, a step sideways, a break, whatever it is, it doesn't mean you're going backwards at all. No. And of course that's true. We all know that. It's just the way we phrase it makes it seem not that case.
Yep, love that.
The second one I loved from this listener, I feel this so much. Firstly, I think it's important to recognize that you're only falling behind based on the expectation of someone else. For example, the company you work for or peers who aren't in the same situation as you. You're doing a fantastic job as a mum, remember that. And I think there's something else I'd like to call out in this, is that there is an assumption of the expectations someone else has about you. And most of the time we tend to find assumptions makes an ass out of you and me. And that is true. Maybe there is no one else. And if they are judging you for your choices, then they're probably not a great supporter of you. Most people around you I have friends who have gone on, become single mothers, and then gone on to become a partner at one of the big firms. I've had single friends who've taken big career breaks. I've had the whole variety of people I'm surrounded by, and none of those choices have ever been judged by anyone else. Yeah. So I think it is really important to check, is it you judging other people judging you? Or are they actually, do they have those expectations? Because they probably don't.
Yeah. And the last helpful tip was all about, again, getting your employer to invest in you while you're away in professional development budget. And that's summarized under the umbrella of connectedness and learning. I think it's really important to separate yourself from the feeds and the sleepless nights. And it could be tuning into a really interesting talk at work. I mean, we can on Zoom now. You can turn your video off if someone is giving an interesting talk at your work, or if there's a webinar that you want to attend, or if there's a networking event, if you're feeling up for it, just to get out there and kind of not just be that primary caregiver at that point in time, if that's what's in your head.
Well, I mean, I hate to sound like a salesperson, and I'm not, I promise, but this is why we designed Powrsuit, how it's designed, in 15-minute mini masterclasses that you can plug into your ears and go out for a walk. You don't have to be physically involved in it, and so it just takes that pressure off. There are lots of options that can work within your schedule rather than adding to them, and it is, we
keeps
found
you thinking
early on,
and learning and being curious.
And a lot of women we spoke to with young children who were working part-time felt guilty about asking for professional development budget. It is an investment in you. It is not a perk or a gift. It is something that will help you do your job better regardless of how many hours a week you're doing it for. So I agree with that. Don't be afraid to ask for that.
And just a very quick plug, thanks to Anna Johnstone, who commented on our LinkedIn post. She has got a podcast that says, that is called Female Career Podcast. And there is an interview, one that she does with 5 incredible New Zealand leaders who share how they've been able to juggle family and career, and some really funny and beautiful stories in there. So we'll pop that in the resources as well.
I love it. We can link to it in our newsletter this week.
Hope you found that helpful.
Sorry about the car noise. If there was any car noise, we are in a different pod studio this afternoon due to technical errors earlier today.
Yes, we are. No, I'm sure we're going to sound marvelous. Thank you so much for tuning in. Apparently, we have 51 5-star 5 stars on our
I had
podcast.
to show Kristen. She didn't
I didn't
believe me.
I didn't believe that 51 of you gave us 5 stars. So thank you so much. And we would ask the rest of you listening, would you give us 5 stars? It helps us to continue to invest in bringing you witty, funny, clever
Yeah, we don't do it
content.
for 4 stars. We are not motivated by 4 stars.
That's right. Anyway, thank you all so much. Happy Mother's Day, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.